is all clear. Again, high school is all clear.
So cosecant is just r over y, so you get negative 5/4. All right, cosine, what's the definition of cosine? So that would be 3 over 5. Reciprocal of cosine is? So that means secant is your 5/3. Tangent of theta, what's the definition of tangent? So that would be negative 4/3, and that means the reciprocal tangent, which is cotangent, would be negative 3/4. Is that okay with everybody? Do you guys all know your x, y, and r definitions? Which ones are reciprocals of one another? So sometimes I asked a similar question, but I didn't give you the actual point. I gave you an equation for the terminal side. So if I give you this, we know to get our trig functions, we have to have x, y, and r. What did we do? Exactly. Told us y had to be negative. So you can pick any negative number you want. Now when I'm looking at this, if I'm going to find my x, I will have to ultimately divide by 2. So let's pick an even number so it'll work out nice. So maybe y is negative 2. If you plug that in, then x has to be 3. Okay, it's not the only point, but it works. So then we need r. So square root of 3 squared is negative 2 squared. So 9 plus 4 is 13, and we can't reduce that. So sine theta, y over r, is negative 2 over radical 13, but what's wrong with that? So you have to multiply by radical 13 on top and bottom. How do we get cosecant?
You flip it before you have to change it.
Yeah, so I'll go back here and flip, so I get negative radical 13 over 2. Cosine x over r is 3 over radical 13, or 3 radical 13 over 13. Reciprocal would be
Radical 13 over 3.
And tangent, y over x, is negative 2/3. So that means cotangent theta is negative 3/2. If there's anything I'm doing that you don't remember or don't understand, please ask, because this is the stuff that's on your quiz. Any issues with that? The next thing we did is we talked about quadrantal angles, and we filled out that whole table of values, but I told you, remember when we did that assignment, I gave you a lot of class time because I didn't want you just copying it off the table. I wanted you thinking through it. So I might ask you a question where you have to kind of think through these things. So I want the final answer for this. I would like for you to show me some work, because I would probably make this worth several points, like 1 point for each of those trig functions having the correct value, and then maybe a point for the final answer. So we do need to figure each of these out. It might help if you kind of draw yourself a picture. Remember in the picture we used, r was always 1. This would be the point, think about just plotting things on an XY axis. This would be the point 1, 0. This would be 0, 1, negative 1, 0, and 0, negative 1. All right, what is the definition of cosecant? All right, so at 90 degrees, 90 is right here, r is 1, y is 1, so 1 over 1 is 1. Minus 4 times the tangent of 360. What's the definition of tangent? Where is 360 at? So if I look here, this is 0 degrees or 360 degrees. So 0 divided by 1 is 0. Plus 2 times the cosine of 180. What's the definition of cosine?
X over R.
So 180 is here. X is negative 1, R is 1, so negative 1 divided by 1 is negative 1. So we get 1 minus 0 minus 2, or negative 1. So far, so good? Let's do just a few more. These were more like yesterday. I gave you what one of the trig functions was equal to, and we have to find the rest of them. All right, so we know cosine is what? X, Y, and R. What's my definition of cosine? Okay. We know R is positive, so that means my X has to be the negative 5. My R has to be positive 8. We need Y. I probably shouldn't have used Y for my angles here. That gets a little confusing. I'll call those thetas instead. So I know X squared plus Y squared equals R squared. So negative 5 squared plus Y squared equals 8 squared. When you do the square root, we have to decide if it's positive or negative. I told you that tangent was going to be positive. Tangent is y over x. If x is negative, and when I divide them, I'm going to get a positive answer, what kind of number does y have to be? Negative. Negative divided by a negative would be positive. Do I need to work through the sine, cosine, tangent, like giving the rest of the values there once we have x, y, and r? You're okay with that part? All right. If I tell you cosecant is negative 4/3, can you tell me what sine is? What is it? Yeah. So I might ask a question like that. That really requires no work, just testing if you're aware of the reciprocals. So make sure you pay attention. Sine and cosecant go together. Cosine and secant, tangent and cotangent. Okay, let's do one like the homework question we talked about, and then we'll do one over picking a quadrant, and then I'm done. All right, I need to know the sine of cosine negative h. And I'm telling you that h is between 90 and 270. So if I want to talk about negative h, what would I need to do first? So we get negative 90. That would flip my inequalities. It's greater than negative h. It's greater than negative 270. Another way to write that, if you don't like your inequalities going that way. Let's figure out what that means. So this is 0. Negative just means you spin down. So here's negative 90, negative 180, negative 270. I am between negative 90 and negative 270. So we are right here. So we are in quadrant 2 or quadrant 3. What's the definition of cosine? We know r is always positive. In quadrant 2 and quadrant 3, what's true about x? And a negative divided by a positive would give me a negative answer. Last one. I just want to know what quadrant I'd have to be in. So tangent is positive and secant is negative. And we've talked a lot about the positive and negative in terms of x, y, and r. Remember, I also did give you that trick. All students take calculus. And this told us when things were positive. So in quadrant 1, they're all positive. In quadrant 2, S is for sine. And if sine's positive, what else has to be? Okay, T is for, and C is for cosine and secant. So if tangent is positive, tangent is positive in 1 and 3, so I know automatically it can't be quadrant 2 or 4. In which of these two quadrants is secant going to be a negative?
2.
So my answer is quadrant. Do you guys have any questions for me?